just been happy doing this in Super League and playing so many games and so many teams. And now it's come to a stage where we've got to expand the game. We have to. Otherwise, it's going to stay like this forever.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the All Out Rugby League studio, where I'm pleased to say once again I'm joined by the game's leading journalist Matt Shaw, and with me another big name. The big names keep on rolling week in, week out here at Back 10 Podcast. He is a 4-time Super League winner, multiple Challenge Cups, 2 World Club Challenges, a couple of Lance Todds in there as well, and Man of Steel, Sean Long. Longy, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Nice to be here. Nice to see you again.
No, good stuff. Good. Matt, how are you?
I'm very well, mate.
Busy week?
Busy week, very busy week, not for the right reasons, which we'll get into later on. But we had a bit of banter this week, didn't we, in the group chat with my predictions? Which I wondered how long we'd wait till we got into that. But,
well, you let everybody know, put it that way.
Don't you worry about that. Always.
So, look, obviously, we got Longy, a player, a legendary player, now turned coach. So, as always, we want to hear from you guys, get you guys involved at home, and we want you to tell us which former player is your favourite current coach. And above all else, do not forget to like and subscribe and let us know in the comments below. Now, let's get into the show. Well, I think there's only one place to start, really, after the weekend's results, and quite a strange season that's been going on over at St Helens. You know, it was only a couple of months ago where the fans were almost calling it a bit of a crisis, but I watched that game on Friday night and, geez, they were good, weren't they?
Yeah, they was really good. You know, probably best I've seen them play for some time now. But I just feel like it's been building for St Helens in the last few weeks. Yeah, they had the hiccup, but Wello's turned them around. And they're playing some real good rugby, and they're working hard for each other, and everything seems to be clicking at the moment, and they're pretty much going under the radar for me, Kyle. You know, they've talked about KR and Wigan, even Leeds, and Lee are doing a great job, but no one's mentioned St Helens, which is it's dangerous. That it could be really dangerous not mentioning St Helens, especially now they're hitting a bit of form, start getting players back. Yeah.
Do you think the players will welcome that then? You know, because they've had an awful lot of pressure. I mean, we know from when we were there and the teams that you'll have played in, you know, playing for a club like St Helens does carry a pressure. But do you feel that this will work in their favour? You know, not being mentioned. You know, nobody's really looking past, you know, Wigan and Hull KR, are they really, for a grand final? There is a couple of teams Longy's mentioned in there. They're on their day, you know, right up there. But do you think that relief in pressure or expectation from Saints is a good thing for them?
100%. I'm with Longy. I think dangerous. I think they are really dangerous. There seems to be this weird perception around Saints that they're having a poor season. I think there's a skew in expectation reality at Saints. I think within the town and the fan base, there's this idea that they should be top 2. They should be winning a grand final this year. I don't think anyone from the outside or neutral was looking at Saints like that this year, if I'm honest. I think most people had them around 5th, 6th. I think they're having a really good season. I think they're playing really well. They've got the second best defence in the league. They've got the third best attack. They're winning games. They haven't beat any of the top 3 yet, which is the big talking point. Wigan, KR and Lee. I think they're having a really good season. I really do, exceeding my expectations. And I suppose a question for both of you guys. I know where I sit on this, and I've been very public on this. There's still been no official confirmation about Paul Wellens' future. It's like his contract's until the end of the season. For me, it's a no-brainer to give him a new deal and let him let him build his own squad. He's barely had any salary cap space to play with from the start. What do you two guys think? Sean, is it for you no-brainer to keep him or?
Oh, yeah, I'd keep Wello 100%. You know, he's St Helens through and through. And yeah, there's a lot of pressure at St Helens. Always, you know, you spoke about it though with the fans, and it's an expectation always to, you know, be in the top 2 or get to grand finals and Challenge Cup finals. And it's probably because they've had so much success prior to that, when I was there and when you was there, Kyle, is that, you know, the fans expect you to win every game, and it's just not like that. It's really difficult to do that, and you know what I mean. I think they've been really good this year, and I'd keep Wello. I'd let him add to the squad what he's got for next year. Bring some overseas quarters, as in spots Aussie players, and I feel like, you know, if he got that right and just got a few Aussies who he wants, I think they'll be like I say, I think they'll be outstanding for next year. Yeah, no,
I absolutely agree with you. There's no doubt that the fans they've been spoiled, haven't they? You know, in recent years, and there was always going to be a bump in the road, a hiccup. You know, but you know, Wello's time, he won that World Club Challenge out in Penrith right at the start. You know, he's got to you know, semi-finals in the playoffs, and sometimes those games go either way, don't they? And you know, do you understand though, Longy, where the frustration came early on? You know, I'm thinking, and it's not a case of picking out Tristan Saylor, but he set off electric, didn't he? And then he had a real sort of dip and drop in form, if you like. You know, it was around that time where they weren't winning games that perhaps Saints fans felt that they should have been winning. Do you understand the frustration behind it, or you know why they were maybe there was even comparisons, and it sort of made me chuckle really, because fans can be fickle. They expect and demand, we know that, but they were comparing sort of Wello with your other mate Kieran Cunningham, whose time came to an end, you know, fairly quickly as well.
Yeah, they always compare it. You know what I mean? I think it was a really tough gig. After Wolfie, you know, you had Justo, he took over after Kieran. You know, I was part of that coaching setup, and then Wolfie came in, you know, and absolutely killed it. And Wello was part of that. And it was kind of, you're not adding to nothing, really.
It's a poison chalice, isn't it, in many ways?
You're not adding to nothing if you don't actually start killing it and winning every game and having the standards what they expect at St Helens. And then, you know, you start off and World Cup Challenge is unbelievable, and then you have a bit of a wobble and everyone jumps on your back. I feel that's really harsh. You know, he's done an amazing job, Wello. And like I said, they're starting to get players back at the moment. Like, Jack's not far off. They've missed Jack. And, yeah, everyone talks about Tristan and stuff like that. But I think it was probably just the dynamic of the spine, trying to find the right connection and cohesion of the spine. That's really difficult. And if you don't know that, you know, once you get into the season, that's probably why the fans probably was on his back a little bit. I don't know. I'm just trying to...
Because Johnny Lomax even, you know, he got dropped around the Magic weekend time, didn't he? He came off the bench. So there was a time where they were jiggery-pokery around with that spine. And I suppose, you know, you mentioned Jack there, and Jack is, you know, we all know that Jack is a fantastic, still very young man, quality player. They've got to find a place for him back in the team. So does that upset the apple cart? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
I was just going to ask you, particularly you, Sean, with, you know, you've played in the spine all your career. What do you do with Jack Wellsby now? Because you play him, he's a phenomenal player, but they seem settled in the spine, they're scoring points. And you've got to find a way to bring him back in and potentially disrupt it. I suppose I'm looking at you as a coach and having been in spines, what would you do?
I'm not there coaching. You put a lot onto me there, but that's the dilemma they've got 4 world-class players. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you've got to fit it into 3.
It's a tough call, given where you know the season's at, given what's coming up, given the fact that they're playing well. It's a coaches, Longy, you know, you'll probably say it as well. They sometimes welcome those headaches, don't they? It's much better to have that luxury than not have any of them, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like, you can't not play Jack though.
No, of course you can't.
You can't not. If Jack's available, he's playing. Yeah, 100%. And his best position for me is fullback. You know, they mixed it up and tinkered with it early on this season, and they put, you know, Jack in the halves. Why wouldn't we move you the best fullback in Super League to the halves? That's probably why it just got a little bit. But that's why you're in head coaching. That's why you pick the team, and you've got to get it right.
Yeah,
especially this time of year now.
Yes,
you know, with 4 games left. Is that right?
Yeah,
in the playoffs, you've got to get it right.
The one thing I am concerned about Saints from a long-term perspective is recruitment. It seems too quiet. I do have one for the news section later on, but I was expecting a big recruitment drive from Saints this time. You look at the players leaving, Knowles, Batchelor, Bell. There's a lot in that pack particularly that are going. And the Papali thing's rolled on. Doesn't look like he's going to come. I'm just looking at that pack next year going, it's not much in there. And I would have expected a lot of recruitment to be done by now. You compare it to other clubs that were doing very much more active than Saints, publicly anyway. Don't know. It just worries me a little bit how that squad's going to look next year.
Well, Morgan Knowles will be a massive miss, won't he?
Oh,
like he is, you know.
He's irreplaceable.
Yeah, and when you work with him, you see even more, don't you? He's quality, and he'll be a great addition for the Dolphins, no doubt about that. But you know, you mentioned there that the games that are left. You know, they've got back-to-back home games, Huddersfield and then Hull. And then they've got a really interesting period. First of all, they go away to Hull KR, home to Wigan in the derby, and then away to Leigh before they finish with Cass. So there's 6 games
That's
left.
the acid test, that free game period.
What I'm saying, Longy, is can you see, they haven't won against, you know, some of the big clubs yet. Can you see them, winning the remainder of their games? And if so, is second a realistic possibility, given the season that they've had?
So how many games have we got left?
There's
now?
6 games left, Long.
Sorry,
6
I got that
games.
wrong, yeah.
So Huddersfield and Hull at home first. Then it goes KR away, Wigan at home, and then Leigh away, then finish with Cass.
Yeah, they've probably got what do you say, 5 or 6 there?
There's 6 in
6
total.
games.
6 in total.
So you've got to win 5, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've got to win 5. And the tough one is, I think on the day, Wigan Saints derby, it's anyone's flip a coin. You know, with it being at Saints, they might have the upper hand. Going to Hull KR, that's a tough one. They always struggle at Hull KR. History shows that. You know, when I was there, it's a tough place to go. And then
Leigh have done a number on them a couple of times.
Leigh have beat all the top 3 teams in
the
recent last few games. So, yeah, I think they could finish second. And what I like about it, no one's speaking about them. They're just going under the radar.
Is your affinity for the club still there? Like, you've still got a soft spot for them and everything like that? Do you keep an eye out on them more than anyone else?
Yeah. Obviously, I've played there for 12 and a half years, so I'd always keep an eye on St Helens and how they're going. But you know, like I say, everyone's speaking about Hull KR and Wigan. You know, I actually thought Leeds were going to go on a run and get to the GF, and I still think they can. Looking in the top 6 now, I think you'd be foolish not to write anyone off.
It's great though, isn't it?
And that's what we want, don't we?
Right.
Did we not want that?
No, of course we do. You know, it's what makes it all really exciting. Right, Longy, I'm going to put you on the spot one more time before we move on, okay? We've mentioned there that, you know, you think Leeds, St Helens, you've talked about Wigan, okay. Who is Sean Long's prediction for the 2025 Grand Final? Which 2 teams walk out at Old Trafford?
I'm going to go Hull KR and St Helens.
Matt?
I've said all along I think it'll be Wigan KR, which I know is really boring.
I do as well, to be fair.
But I think Wigan will come good now they're getting some players back.
Well, St Helens weren't the only club in action over this weekend. There's plenty to get through. But, Matt, a bit of a delayed news roundup from you. We've had a bit of a chat with Longy there, but off you go. 60 seconds. Give us the world of news in rugby league. Let's go.
Right, let's start with the coaching front. We're expecting Castleford to make their announcement this week on who will be their new head coach. We believe it will be Ryan Carr. He has been the front runner, the man that Chris Chester has wanted from the get-go. He has been interviewed. We expect him to be appointed. On the recruitment front, teased it a bit earlier, St Helens, I'm told that they are really trying hard to sign Shane Wright for next year. It's a bit of a tricky one, this, because he's under contract at Salford, but it's a little bit complicated with what's going on there. If they are in a position to recruit him, they would very much like him to be part of their squad next year. And speaking of Salford, as ever, it becomes a more grim situation by the week. They had to pay off a number of bills this week, sold some players that we'll get into very shortly, and it got so bad that the coach travel and the laundrette had to be paid off by central funding. It's a very, very grim situation. Will they see out the season? It feels very unlikely right now.
Well, look, clearly a distressing time for everybody associated with Salford. Look, I was at the game yesterday. Half-time, 50-0 Longy. We very quickly started looking through the record books to see what records were going to be broken that day. There was a couple of nice pieces in there for sort of at the second half when the Salford players came out. Everybody in the whole stadium were applauding the players, you know, understanding what they were going through. At the end, we saw both groups of players sort of in unison together. Both sets of players went and applauded the Salford fans, but Longy, it's a mess. You know, clubs are now sort of gifting players on loan. Riley Lunn was the latest Leeds top try scorer.
There was loads, wasn't there?
You know, and look, is it risky for these young players to go there, knowing that their careers are only just beginning? They're on a hide into nothing. I'm sure the players will be excited about the opportunity, but it is a little bit of a risk, isn't it? It is lambs to slaughter every week.
Yeah. You know, as a young kid there going into Salford, you know, probably you are buzzing to actually get your debut in Super League. You know, I'd be really excited if no matter who I was playing for, I was like, I'm playing Super League, how good is this? But, you know, are they ready for it? Probably not. You know, some of those players, but like you said, being thrown in the deep end, they're probably not actually ready, but they're excited to play.
It's ugly for the game, isn't it? You know, 80s, 74 the week earlier. Like, that's not what Super League fans are wanting to watch. Like, it surely can't go on for the next 6 weeks.
No, and I feel really sorry for him. I feel really sorry for what's happened. But it's been coming. We've all known this. Yeah. It's been happening for a while, hasn't it? With, you know, players leaving. You know, the Sneed and Stone and a few other lads gone to St Helens, and obviously a couple come to us last week. So it's really upsetting. But we've known about this for a while, and I just felt it should have been something should have been done before it's got to this situation now.
Let's be right. This has been going on longer than that. The community share scheme thing they set up last year, it was a fundraiser. It was all pie in the sky stuff. It is a club that has overspent, been woefully mismanaged for a long period of time, spending money they don't have, banking on things coming off that always seemed unlikely. No one could have quite expected it to play out as it has since then with this new ownership group and whatever's gone on. It's just a crazy story. But it's felt like anyone who's watched this closely, I felt like this has been coming for 18 months.
Yeah.
And it annoys me that we're at this point now, because it should have never been allowed to get to this. And we're going to have a point on, they play Sunday this week, don't they, against Wakefield, and there's some public protests going on. They're doing a march from Salford Roosters, the community club, to the stadium. I think they're planning on leaving the terraces during the game to, you know, public protests. That's where we're at now. It's a dire situation, and honestly, Kyle, I just don't see how they get out of this, because they've got six games left. They've got the HMRC meeting September 3rd. Well, I can't see there being any progress on that front. You've got payroll coming up after 2 more games. I'm at a point I'd be surprised if they play the season out. I really would.
So you not think they'll finish the season?
No, I don't.
Honestly.
Well, that's going to, you know, I mean, look, realistically, in my opinion, November 1, when they knew all about this, they should have just pulled the plug then, shouldn't they? And I understand that players' contracts and everything, and look, there's always going to be blood on the carpet, isn't there? You know, whichever way around you do it. But to drag those fans, those players, Paul Rowley, his staff, all through that, being hit again and again and again, to get to a situation, Longy, a realistic situation where they may not be able to fulfil these fixtures. Really, I mean, look, it's all said in hindsight, right? But they should have just pulled the pin in November 1 and ran with an 11-team competition, or put it out there to, you know, is there another club that's willing to sort of step up? Because even a club from the Championship, who's probably, you know, the salary cap would be much less considering what they've had, they'd have been more competitive than what we're seeing at the weekend.
Yeah, it's a shame, innit? We played KR in the Challenge Cup away. We only got beat by 40. And, you know, it was quite an entertaining game for the first half. They just run away with it in the second. And we stayed in the fight pretty much for the whole game. You know, we scored a couple of tries later on, but, you know, when you're turning up and you're getting pumped by 70 and 80, it's not good for the game, is it? No. And it's not good for all those young kids, what we just spoke about. And the club as well, you know, they've been through a lot, and it's tough times, and I feel sorry.
To quote, you know, the old Leeds chairman, Peter Risedale, it's like we've spent too much, but, you know, we've lived the dream, isn't it? And that dream is pretty much on the verge of being over, you know. Such a shame.
It feels now, Cal, doesn't it? Like they're on the monopoly board with no properties, no assets, and everyone's got hotels and everything, and it's just a case of when they land on one and it bankrupts. I know that's a horrible analogy, but that's kind of how it feels. Like it's just when rather than if.
I didn't know they were spending so much. Do you know, on the players? You know, when you look at the team, I always thought they was like spending like 1.4345. I was actually spending a lot of money and paying overs. Do you know what I mean? And then it's just gone back.
Remember when they signed Brodie Croft on a 7-year contract and he was on marquee money? The club couldn't afford it.
Yeah,
but they were still doing it. You look at when the season finished last year. They went and signed. I think there was Joe Bullock, Justin Sangaré. And everyone in the game, like behind the scenes, going, they can't afford this, and they're still doing it. And then 3 weeks later, they're asking for £500,000 advance funding. But they've just signed all these players, and you're just going, what's going on here? It just woeful mismanagement.
Should somebody from the game, should a governing body or whoever, should somebody have stepped in and raised it with them, stopped them doing it? Like, what do you think?
I know the RFL don't like the idea of criticism on this, but for me, if their legislations weren't in place to deny this, the legislations are wrong. You know, it's as simple as that. The RFL have got this wrong one way or another. I'm with you. They shouldn't have given them. Well, in hindsight, they shouldn't have given them the £500,000. Now, it's worth noting that the owners of the club, the clubs get a say in that, and they backed out of the decision. They didn't want anything to do with that. They didn't think, but they want power on other terms, but not on that. And I think, well, come on. So it was left to the RFL and RLC. They decided to carry on, and let's be honest, at the time we all felt, well, give them a chance, because we thought the stadium were going to come off on the land, and then so I do have sympathy for the RFL in some degree. They were damned if they did and damned if they didn't. But then they do that audit of the club and recommend to the club they should sell assets and players. The club didn't want to do that because the people who were managing it are just living in fantasy land that everything's going to come off. They didn't sell the players, even though they were getting bids left, right and centre. But they should have forced them then. That shouldn't have been a recommendation. It should have been enforced. And we could have maybe started getting to a point where things could have been a little bit better financially early on. Would it have been enough to get him through the season? I don't know. I probably would have done, to be honest, because he'd have brought the cost right down earlier.
Well, it was interesting speaking to Rolls at the end of that game. Longy as a coach, you know, you've got to feel for him. I mean, last week against Hull KR, he sounded like a broken man. He sounded like the situation had just got, you know, he's quite normally positive, upbeat, and he finds a way, doesn't he, of whatever his ability to tell a story to the playing group or what, I don't know. But talking to him yesterday, it sounded like he's almost found a bit of humour in it, because it's just that ridiculous what's happening.
Yeah, you know, he always puts a positive spin on it, Rolls, you know, and I think he's done a great job at Salford to actually keep that team together for as long as it's been, you know what I mean? So now you got lads like ringing up other clubs and trying to get out and stuff like that now, and probably some of the lads have left it a little bit too late. You know, there's not much knocking about, and I feel like I said, I feel really, really sorry for him. But he has done a great job to hold it together, because he's been fronting it up, you know, in front of the cameras every week and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's tough. I bet he's stressed as an head coach. You know, I'm stressed as an head coach. I don't know what he's going through.
Well, that's what I was just going to say, Longy. For a little bit of fun, if you put yourself in his shoes, you're playing Wakefield this week, who have just fell out of the playoffs, who are needing a big win as well. What are you saying to that playing group if you were in Rolls' shoes this week?
There's not much you can say, really, because I don't know what training they're doing. I don't know how many players they got during the week. So how much prep you can actually do. I think they only had 12 players last week.
He's even picking players up on the way to the game. You know, Brad Dwyer got announced as a later addition, and then so the game have changed these rules so they can get players in, but yet then they've docked them an interchange. Like, it's mental, isn't it?
The first time Paul Rowley and the players met after loanees was when they came on the coach. It was literally just a bunch of blokes thrown together and put out in red kit.
It's sad.
Very sad. We can keep going on about this, but you know, one beneficiary, if you want to call it that, I say that word loosely, Oldham. You know, you've been able to bring in two players there in Jack and Ryan Brierley. I mean, have you had much chat with them about the situation, or is it literally just been, right, lads, get in and get after the game that you played at the weekend?
Obviously, when this stuff happened with Salford, we actually identified a few of Salford players what we'd like to bring on board. You know, we fit, you know, our DNA of the club and how we want to play. And those were the two guys. There was a few others actually we wanted to bring in, like Ankinson, but he ended up going to Leeds. But So everyone's kind of like just like shark, like just come and grabbing the players, and it's not great really. And I didn't really want to do that, but it's come to an head where the actual players are actually knocking on the door and going in and saying, "We're not going to get paid out. I'm going to have to sort my own future out," because you can't pay your mortgage and stuff like that, and then you've got a career of this year and next year, or contract for this and next year, and you're not holding it, and you think it's a bit like sketchy, then they wanted out. So they've actually gone in and said, it's time. We've stood by you all season. It's been really difficult, and they've showed faith in Salford, and then now it's come to a head where literally everyone's just jumping ship.
Yeah, the players, look, at this stage, they can't be blamed. Ryan Brownlee, a Salford fan all the way. It takes a lot for him, a player like him, to walk away, but ultimately it comes down to it's a job, and I challenge anybody outside of sport who has a normal job, if they're not going to get paid and there's an opportunity to go elsewhere and do the same job, albeit in a different colour, you're going to take it, right?
100%. I mean, I'd be a point where I think my threshold will have been surpassed and I just walked. There were nothing for me because it's not worth the hassle. I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't blame Paul Rowley if he left now and just had done with it.
Do you reckon that could happen?
Would you blame him?
Well, no, you wouldn't.
I wouldn't blame him, but I think Rolls is a real proud man, mate.
Yeah,
I think
I hope he sticks it out.
I hope he sticks it out, because I think he's just gone through so much this year for him to smoke bomb it now and just said, what, I'm done.
Yeah.
I think he'll fight. I think he'll fight to the end, Rolls.
He does seem like that sort of guy, doesn't he? But he'll be hurt by the losses this week, particularly Ryan Browley, because he's had him all his career, hasn't he? And it's a great pickup. His record in the Championship is a joke, try scoring wise.
Yeah,
he's just so prolific. He's a really good signing for him.
Yeah, and he was the captain of Salford, and he's a Salford fan, so he actually didn't want to leave. I felt, with the situation, and he was in tears. You know what I mean? So actually, for us to pick him up and get Jack as well, like I said, the two guys we identified, and both scored tries yesterday for us, and they had an outstanding game. So yeah.
Well, look, Longy, there's been a couple of the shows that we've had in the past where we've talked about, the introduction of 14 teams. Oldham's name has been mentioned in there in terms of a potential Super League outfit for 2026. Longy, I'm not too sure what you can and can't say, but if you could give us an idea of what the plans for Oldham are looking like, is there a realistic opportunity for Oldham to be a part of 2026?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we're definitely going for it. We've got an owner in Bill Quinn who's put a lot of his hard-earned money into Oldham. When I first went in, I was in League One, we was only getting like 300-400 fans, and now we're at Boundary Park, and obviously League One was okay, and then we ended up winning that, got promoted, and we're sitting fourth at the moment. So Bill's really pushing for it. He's putting his money in, he's putting stuff into the facilities, buying players. And I just don't know why you wouldn't want Bill Quinn's money. Do you know what I mean? Actually saying, we're going to put a load of money into Oldham for the club and the facilities. We've got a great stadium, got a real good fan base now, and it's going to get better. And actually saying, if Super League doesn't want Bill Quinn's money, I just don't understand that. If, there's a bloke there who's willing to put a lot of money in, and for Super League to go, well, we're not too sure about, investing all this money. If I was Super League, it's got to expand. It's got to, look at the NRL now. It's, it's going mental, and they're never happy with what's going on in the NRL. We seem to have just been happy doing this in Super League and playing so many games and so many teams, and now it's come to a stage where we've got to expand the game. We have to, otherwise it's just gonna stay like this forever. We've got to push for it, and there's teams like Bradford, York, Toulouse, ourselves, who's got money, or who's willing to put money in. I just don't know why you wouldn't take the money. And if you say to me, and I don't know, if you said, are you ready now for Super League? I'd say, we will be ready next year if we got the opportunity. But I also think, who else is ready? Are Bradford ready? Are York ready? Are Toulouse ready? No, they're not ready. So why are we not ready when we've got an owner like Bill Quinn? That's why I think.
I watched his interview he did last week with Oldham, and he spoke really passionately about this. He really is pushing it. Like, what? Give us a little bit of insight into him, because I've got to be honest, I didn't know much about him, but he seems like uberly enthusiastic about this project. He's put his money where his mouth is, as you said. What's he like?
It's just he just wants to win. I cop it a few times. You know what I mean? If we lose games, but he's really understanding. He was at Oldham a few years ago when Chris Hamilton was there, and he walked away. He put millions in, and he just walked away and smoke bombed it because of what happened. And now he's actually come back into the game, and he and Mike Ford met up about the new takeover, and he's gone, right, I'm going in again, and he's put his money where his mouth is, and that's what. And he just wants to get into Super League, and he feels like Oldham, with the Greater Manchester area, what we've got, is like a big catchment area, and also a good place to be. So actually, I think he's actually he's going for it. And if he don't get in, he'll still be around. He's not one of those guys who are going to come in, throw a load of money and go, well, we're not going to Super League, I'm going to walk away. He's not like that, Bill. He'll fight.
It's positive, isn't it? They're the stories that we want to hang our hat on, really. I mean, Dave Hughes, we saw him, pumping tens of millions into London, and eventually had enough and walked away. We got an opportunity here with Bill where, he's already walked away once. Like, we can't, you talk about the game, learning lessons, we can't lose people like that who are willing to put their hard-earned money where their mouth is and be the real deal. Oldham as well, look at the players that area has produced for Super League and beyond, for a long, long time. There is a base there, a solid base ready to go. I mean,
the thing that impresses me about Oldham at the minute, and you touched on it, you go back to David Hughes, who he cannot deny his commitment and loyalty to London, but it felt like London were always just pumping money into the team and not the club. Don't get me wrong, I know you guys have got a fair budget, and you've recruited some high profile players, and he's splashed the cash on the team to that extent, but feels like he's trying to build a good club, not just build a good team. Like from when you got there to now, it feels like a completely different club. It was in many ways a League One club when you got there, wasn't it? Where it's not now.
Yeah, it was. Like I said, our training facility was just a piece of grass. Now they've spent a lot of money on it. It's still not where it should be. You know what I mean? Yeah. But Bill's actually willing to actually invest in that and the grassroots of our training facility, which is great. You know what I mean? And then, like I said, he's given me the players what I wanted. To compete in Championship, because it's totally like League One is pretty average all over here. But actually, to go in Championship, anyone could beat anyone. It's a tough league. Bradford and Toulouse and York, and even like Widnes and Fev, there's some great teams there, and it is tough. But Bill's actually said, "What players do you want?" And he's got me on. I'm just like, can't thank him enough really for what he's done. But like I say, he's not just doing it on the field; he's actually doing it off the field as well. So I would dare to lose someone like the.
Yeah, it would be a shame. But look, you talk about sort of Salford not being a part of it. There's 5 teams we've mentioned there. Only 3 can go in. Is there a date where that's going to be? Are we? I put you on the spot now. Is there a date? Long have you had any insight into when this decision's going to be made in terms of who's going to know? Because
you'll know more than me.
It's a valid point, because long he's therefore, if he gets the green light for him and his club to go in there, well, he's got a shopping list he's got to go get after pretty quick.
I agree.
You need your full Super League roster pretty much ready to go for the start of pre-season, don't you? You can't leave it till the last minute, surely.
This is what I don't understand, Kyle, is that they're leaving it so late. When, like I said, Lee came up and they had to do it, they actually planned for 12 months prior to that.
Wakefield as well.
Wakefield did it last year.
Yeah.
I think Toronto or Toulouse did it prior to that, before that. So they're leaving it really late. And I heard they were going to let us know on grand final night.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, who is ready now? If you're going to give us the green light on grand final night and go, do you know what? You're in Super League, you're in Super League, you're in Super League. There you go. And you go, wow.
Cheers.
Cheers, thanks for that. Can we not give us a bit more notice?
The thing is, because of IMG, it's not going to be before then. It can't be, because the Championship grand final, the winner gets bonus points on the IMG score, which could determine who goes in as club number 12. And then it can impact who clubs 13 and 14 are. So it can't be done before then, the way it's currently set up. But it's crazy because, as you say, and this was the question I was going to ask you, how on earth can you put together a squad that is good enough to compete in Super League week in, week out, one-off games, capable, no doubt. How can you put a squad together that compete week in, week out when you are essentially going to find out in the middle of October what league you're in?
I don't know, mate.
This is why this is all.
But the other side
of
this, right, Longy, is, and look, you've been around long enough that let's say those 3 championships come up, right, and they've not been able to get the players who they want, etc., and they find themselves being hammered week in, week out. People can potentially lose their jobs there. Do you know what I mean? There is a bigger, obviously, look, this reality of sport, it's a results-based game. I get that. But you're not really giving everybody the fair crack. It makes a mockery of it, doesn't it?
And this is why I think they've actually given them 2 years. Do you know what I mean? Because the first year, it's going to be really difficult.
Tough.
And you look at Championship at the moment, there's only one team in Championship which is full-time. That's Toulouse. Now, they're, I think, second or third at the moment, something like that. I reckon if you put us, maybe Bradford and York full-time, you get a 20% or 30% increase in your performance because you're full-time. I've only got these lads for 3 nights a week and they're grafting during the day. They're on site and stuff like that. So if you're actually full-time, you're going to get better performances and stuff like that. But again, you need the quality of players to bring in. And at the moment, we'll literally be all scratching round for the same players.
Sorry, Matt, just to jump in there. So if Oldham aren't a part of 2026, right, promotion and relegation, is that then, are Oldham then going to have to, if they want to be a part of it, are they going to have to do the model of Lee, Wakefield, really invest and go after it with a view of them preparing for 2027 and try and carbon copy what those 2 clubs have done and done successfully?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So if we don't get in this time, what I don't get is if we win the grand final and then we don't get up, it would be upset me. You know what I mean? I'd be a bit
of course you would be.
Because our lads have tipped in all year and we've been on this mad journey, what we've been on, and then actually to win it and then you go, you know what, you're not in Super League.
You just get a pat on the back, basically.
Well done. I'll be like, what's going on here? So I think it's got to be sorted out and find out where, but if we don't get in, then we've got, I think, with Bill, I think we've got to do the model what Lee's done and Toulouse and Toronto and Wakefield.
I think what will end up happening on this, the teams will go up and it'll be 14-team comp next year, whoever goes up. I think there'll be no change then the year after going into 2027. I don't think they'll do anything. The teams will get grace.
Yep.
And then we'll probably be back to promotion relegation after that.
Yeah,
that's the direction.
I agree with that. And that's why I think they're actually giving them a grace for a year because it's going to be for 3 teams who come up, it's going to be difficult. And then that's why they give them another year to then recruit.
Really interested, isn't it?
Fascinating.
And still more questions rather than answers.
Yeah.
Longy, just quickly, just to touch up on your season this year. We talked about St Helens right at the start and being unable to beat sort of, some of the big 3, if you want to call them, Leeds, Hull KR, Wigan. Apart from the early loss to Barrow, you yourselves have struggled against the big 3. How do you see, and realistically, where do you think your team is capable of finishing in the league? Obviously, you're going to say we're going to go on and win the grand final, right? But where do you think you're going to finish in the league this year?
We're pushing for 3rd. I think realistically, 4th. With having 4 games left. With on that, just touching on what you spoke about there, we're the only team we probably beat. We got beat off Toulouse twice, got beat off Bradford twice. But we had 16 players when we played Bradford, but no excuse. That's Bradford were really good, really good. We're the only team above us who we beat is York first game of the year, and we were flying. We've just been decimated with injuries, and that's no excuse on our. We would never make any excuses, but. The only team we beat is York. We pushed them close last week. They got over the line, a couple of tries in the last 9 minutes. But yeah, so hopefully, if we're in 4th, we get a home semi. And like you said, what's happened in the past in Super League or in Championship, especially with London. When I was at Fev a few years ago, Fev finished first. London played them in a semi and tumped them up. You know what I mean? So anything can actually happen in Championship. And as we get in the mix, we're in fourth, and we start getting some lads back from injury, and with a couple of signings we've made already, and we're actually looking for to sign someone else.
Right.
Um,
we could push.
I was just going to ask you about that, Sean, just a bit of a story, because I thought it was just fascinating, that Featherstone year you are. Because you were flying, you were top of the league, and then you lost to Halifax
away.
Which were your second defeat as coach.
Yeah.
And you got flicked.
Yeah.
And I just remember everyone thinking, what on earth's gone on here? What are your memories, or what's your version of event of that story?
Yeah, I thought I was doing all right. It was 10 points clear. We were 10 points clear, and then we got beat up Halifax, and then we was 8 points clear, and then I got a phone call day after off my manager saying you sacked. I was like, brilliant.
Rugby league for you, right?
Rugby league's a winner.
Yeah. Well, look, Longy's given us a great insight, not only into the Super League, but also into the Championship. We are, unfortunately, out of time, but do join us next week, where we'll have another big name sat in between me and Matt. We look forward to seeing you all then. From all of us three, thanks to Longy, Matt, goodbye for now.